Thursday, October 9th, about 10 o'clock in the morning. You are watching the All 32 podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network and powered by the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America, PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off and lineups off your first $5. It is good to be right, and it is good to be joined by my guy, Nick Underhill of NewOrleans.football. And let me just quick little preamble here. If you want to understand how to cover football and how to build something from the ground up, then you talk to Nick, because what he has done in New Orleans, the site that he has built, the interaction with the fan base, and it is just an incredible success story. Nobody knows more than my guy, and nobody knows more about how to build this thing up than you, Nick. So we're excited to have you here and give us a little 411 on the New Orleans Saints.
Well, first of all, I'm gonna have you do my intro anytime I gotta go somewhere, because that was the kindest intro I've ever gotten in my life. So I'll take it, and thank you for that. And yeah, man, I'm glad to be here. Good to see you guys. It's gonna be interesting to see what this matchup looks like this week. Saints aren't really in a position of strength right now. There's a couple bright spots. It's kind of one of them rebuilding years, trying to figure out what they are, where it's going, who can play, who can't, and I think nothing illustrates that better than them hanging with the kicker that has missed the kick in 4 out of 5 games. And they're just willing to see if he can turn it back around instead of looking somewhere else. So I don't know that winning every game is the most paramount thing right now for this team. And it's going to be interesting to see where they're at. They beat the Giants last week, but the Giants kind of gave that one up. It wasn't really about the Saints taking it from them.
Nick, this sort of rebuild reset is probably long overdue. There were a number of years where they kept kind of pushing and trying to hang on to, hey, can we slide into the playoffs? Can we surprise some people? And then when Derek Carr retires in the offseason, and it's just sort of like, okay, maybe now it's time to take a breath, figure this thing out, and build a young core and build it out.
Yeah, I'll give you a little backstory, because people probably weren't paying a lot of attention to the Saints because they weren't a team worth paying attention to, but it's actually kind of an accidental rebuild. They planned to go into the season with Derek Carr. They restructured his contract, and it's just weirdest thing ever. They restructure the contract so they get the cap space, because they push out their money and all that stuff. So they get the cap space for the offseason. He ends up retiring later, so then that money gets offset into the future, and they basically get the cap space at the beginning and get the benefit of like a June 1st retirement. And they never had to carry that cap hit throughout the offseason. So then they go and sign guys like Justin Reed and Brandon Cooks, older players that probably wouldn't be part of this core if they had known what was coming, in the future, what the future looked like. I don't even know if those guys would want to be here. I doubt Justin Reed signs here if he knows that he's going to be entering a 2, 3, 4 year rebuild. So there's kind of these pieces they added at the beginning. It's all in on trying to win the NFC South, still doing what they're always doing. And then Carr retires and it craters, and then it's kind of this reset to something else over here. So it's kind of this like weird limbo of guys, but now they're shifting more toward playing all the younger players. They signed this guy, Ike Yadam. He was their cornerback. He kind of got a convenient injury because he was going to count against the comp pick formula. So there's just like a lot of stuff going on right now. But it's absolutely kind of a kicking and screaming accidental rebuild that they're now fully embracing, because there's really no other option to go.
You got a new head coach in Kellen Moore. We're only 5 games in. I'm curious what you've learned about him. How does he want his team to play? Do you have a good feel for that now? After it's still a small sample size.
Yeah, it's an interesting team, an interesting personality, an interesting approach to how they do things, because it's been the same here kind of forever with Sean Payton and then Pete Carmichael after him last year. Clint Kubiak was the OC under Dennis Allen. They all get fired. There was only like 4 games of a healthy team. So it's a much different brand of Saints football. And I think it's a much younger way of thinking. It's mostly shotgun. It's built on RPOs. It's more of a space and pace type of offense, as opposed to maybe, when you watch college games, like they kind of have an offense that looks very college influenced in a lot of ways. And look, I think it's working for him with where they're at. And he might, I don't know, it's like so premature to say this, but he might actually be one of those guys that can help a quarterback play well, because Spencer Rattler's doing things and putting up numbers, and the end result sometimes looks better than, the numbers actually probably look a little bit better than the film does, but he's putting him in positions to succeed, not allowing him to make mistakes, getting the home runs when when they can get him. And the development there is crazy. Like his sack numbers from not just South Carolina, but like last year to this year are drastically different. So I think he's maybe somebody that's actually able to impact that position. I think Giardi's still out on Brandon Staley in the defense. I don't know if the scheme isn't always working or if they just don't have enough good players. It could be a little bit of both. It could be one or the other. But it's a much, much different Saints team. It looks way different. And I mean, honestly, it's like a little bit of culture shock sometimes seeing how they do things because it's so far left from like the Bill Parcells 1980s influence that has like just carried this franchise for the last 20 years, which you guys, know very, very well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you brought up Rattler because I didn't have much love for him. I loved his toughness coming out, right? Then I saw him at the Senior Bowl, and I was like, you know what? He spins it better than I thought he did. And obviously last year was a difficult situation when he gets thrust in, as you well know. This year, watched 3 games, and I'm like, I think I like Spencer Rattler. Where are you on that? And where do you think they are on Spencer Rattler?
It's so confusing because I think if you took the name off it and you said, hey, he's a first round pick and these are the first sample of games, I think there would be a lot of encouragement around it. But he's a 5th round pick. They drafted Tyler Shuck with the 40th selection. They're probably going to be picking in the top 5. And it's just very hard to know like where to exist with it because everything he does is viewed through the prism of like, well, they drafted this guy at 40 because they must think he has a higher ceiling than him. So he plays well. And instead of being like, what are they building toward? Should they look at Jordan Tyson instead of Dante Moore in the draft? It's like, well, does this buy him more time from this guy that they drafted to take his place? Are they ever going to just look at the other guy? Like, what does it look like? The Rattlers credit, man, I think he's playing way, way better than I probably expected coming into it. I thought he had talent. He has a really good arm. There was just a ton of sacks last year, a ton of interceptions. This year, again, he's not taking sacks. He's not throwing picks. He's got a lot of turnover-worthy plays, but I would say you go through them, like 5 of I think he has like 9, maybe probably 10 at this point. 5 of them came against Seattle when they went down 21-0 within like 5 minutes of real life time in that game. And he's just trying to throw him back. He looks pretty good. The accuracy is a problem. Like he's just a little bit behind guys a lot of times. Their yards after catch isn't very good, which I think is a hindrance to kind of the spacing that they want to play with on offense. And the red zone's been terrible. Like they can't score in the red zone at all. They were 0 for 3 last week. Maybe they get better at it. But, again, these are things where it's like if this were his first year starting, you'd be like, well, there's these couple little things here that he can build on and maybe off it goes. But it's just like it's a very weird limbo with Tyler Shuck lingering behind him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? They as you mentioned, they invest a 2nd round pick in Shuck. And I mean, I kind of expected at some point you're going to see him this year. I just think that's the way it goes. But maybe if Rattler continues to play at this level, maybe it makes a harder decision for them, or maybe who knows? We don't know what's happening. I mean, you know better than we do about what's happening behind the scenes with Shuck's development, but Shuck's an older prospect too. It's a very complicated situation in New Orleans. You mentioned the lack of red zone scoring. And I get every play is different and there are different results to it. But it feels to me like they've got enough playmakers there, right, to be able to do this in the red zone, to be able to be more productive.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of their guys are like 6 foot or shorter. Brandon Cooks, Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed. They should be able to get open in that area. But the weird thing with the team, they traded for Devon Bailey from Denver. He's a 6'3" guy, supposed to be their red zone weapon, and he does have a red zone touchdown down there. He got hurt, and then it's just kind of been like really slow coming back. And then they spent a lot of money on Juwan Johnson, made him like a top 15 paid tight end. He's supposed to be a red zone weapon. He dropped one in week 1. It would have been a really hard catch, but I don't think either one of those guys are kind of producing to the way that they're hoping, they would. So I think it's still a little bit of a work in progress. I think they're trying to figure out what actually works down there, how to create some space, get those smaller guys open when things get condensed. And to your previous point, the weirdest thing about their quarterback room, Rattler's the vet. These 2 guys have the same birthday. I think it's September 28th. Shuck's a year older than Rattler, and he's the rookie. It's just a very unique situation.
Yeah, he was a difficult sort of prospect to wrap your head around coming out this past year because you're like, well, there's a lot of great stuff on tape, but he's also older than so many of these guys that have gone in the draft the last few years. And like, how do you balance that? Like, the Patriots drafted Kyle Duggar a few years back, right? And Duggar is on his second contract, but he's 29. And it's like, you normally get your second contract, you're right in your prime. He might be at the end of his prime, right? He's actually struggling to get on the field here with the new regime, but it's those players like that you have to look at and go, I need it almost right away. Otherwise, you're not getting the sort of benefit for
it. Him and Juwan Johnson were college teammates, and Juwan Johnson is on his third contract in the NFL. Like, it's just a weird
Joe Flacco thing, right? Joe Flacco's playing with Orlando Brown Jr. now. Orlando Brown Jr. was the freaking ball boy in Baltimore when Flacco was the starting quarterback. I want to, as we talk more about matchups, do you think that what are the Saints better against, zone or man? Would they prefer if the Patriots said, you know what, we're gonna sit back, we're gonna play zone and let you pick us apart underneath and try to string together 7-8 completions and complete a drive? Or, is this a team that, come get us and let's see what happens?
Yeah, I think the problem with them is that, so a couple things. Rattler hasn't been great against disguise coverages, and the teams they played early in the season kind of overdose on it. Arizona does that 3 safety thing. San Fran's good at it. The Bills do a lot of it. The Giants don't do a lot of like middle open the field to close to open. Like, so they were able to go down the field. They got an 87-yard shot against it. I know the Patriots have allowed, I believe, more explosives than anybody in the league in the past game. I think they've allowed 37. If I was looking at it earlier this week, I might be off on it, but it's right around there. And their disguise rates are kind of similar to how the Giants were. So maybe if they approach it that way, I think maybe the Saints get a couple shots. If you can make them play, if you can sit back and just play your 2 shell, make them play underneath, they're going to just go down the field and take like 18 plays to march down the field, and they're going to make a mistake at some point, and it's going to fall apart. Because, again, you have a quarterback that's a little bit inaccurate. He's not going to give them those yards after catch opportunities. And if you can just make them keep running plays, they're going to stall out. And that's been the biggest issue with them, is that they aren't getting these throws down the field. And I think, look, honestly, my biggest criticism of Rattler is that I wish he would be maybe a little bit more risk tolerant. I think that he's in a position to where, look, and you look at his history, he's at Oklahoma. They get Caleb Williams in there. He's at one point one of the highest rated recruits in the country. They bring in Williams. He loses his job. He ends up here. He's supposed to be the guy after Derek Carr. They draft a guy to come in behind him. He's kind of playing in a way where, it's like you see these news stories about people that squat in houses and they've read every single law and they do everything they need to do to establish themselves, and you just can't get them out of the house. That's kind of how he's playing the position right now. It's just, I'm not going to throw an interception. I'm not going to do things to put at risk. I'm going to get in here, and you are not going to be able to eject me because of anything I do. So I think if you make him just kind of play pop gun down the field, he's going to do it. He's not going to try to hit that ball, over in the beat cover 2. He's not going to throw the cover 2 beater, but you show him, cover 3, you give him a shot. He's got one-on-one on the outside. He'll take that shot because you probably aren't going to get a pick there. And that's kind of how he's playing the position right now.
Yeah. And another reason why you gotta subscribe to NewOrleans.football. I did not expect at 10:19 in the morning, I was going to get a Spencer Rattler house squatting, learn the rules analogy. That was perfect. Absolutely perfect. I love it. I'm upset that I'm going to have to figure out a way to get that into my life at some point.
Take it as yours, man.
When it comes to football. Offensive line, obviously some young players, young tackles, the rookie Banks on one side, which I'll ask you about in a little bit, Fuaga on the other side. What I'm looking at is the interior and saying, can this interior for the Saints hold up against Barmore, who's really starting to come on, looking like the 2023 Barmore, Milton Williams, whose play has been better than the PFF numbers would indicate. And then, oh, by the way, Kyrus Tonga has been an absolute revelation for the Patriots, an absolute demon. Like, I did not expect that from him at all. A couple other good players in Farmer, the rookie, and Corey Durden, who are getting good run and actually producing when they're on the field. Are the Saints good enough in the interior to hold those guys at bay and give Rattler time and also create running lanes for Kamara and Miller?
Yeah, so they've done a really good job of getting the ball out kind of fast, especially when that stuff's coming. They played the Giants last week, didn't give up a sack, and they had a UDFA playing at one of the guard positions, and he literally got beat on 8 plays, and it just never resulted in a sack. Rattler's pretty good at moving around back there. He gets the ball out quick. He protects himself. He's done a good job of identifying like where pressure's coming from and just not allowing himself to get into those bad spots. but no, their interior isn't good. And at like some point, it feels like the dam's going to break. Cesar Ruiz is coming back. I think he should be coming back this week to play at that other guard spot where they had the UDFA last week. 1 week removed from a high ankle sprain.
Crazy.
So that's going to be kind of interesting. Yeah. And even before that, he was a little bit spotty playing so far this year. At the other guard spot, they got Trevor Penning in there, former first round pick at tackle, went from the left side, went to the right side. He's at guard now. I mean, you're kind of moving around like that. That's kind of the last stop on saving yourself from being a bust. And I think he looks like a guy that doesn't really know the position yet. Like if you do some simulated pressures at him in that and you kind of bluff where it's coming from, you can fool him. If you kind of creep someone up late, he's not going to make the adjustment and you can get a free runner right through his gap because he'll be doubling up on somebody else and just not see like a linebacker standing there. So I think if you throw a couple little things at him, which I would expect this Patriots staff to identify that stuff and try some of it, I think you can create some advantages there. So yeah, it's definitely shaky on the interior. Eric McCoy at center, probably maybe the best center in the league. He's up there. So he's incredibly solid. But the two guys next to him, I think for varying reasons are definitely vulnerable.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they handle the Patriots and how the Patriots decide to attack. And if you mentioned the UDFA, if he plays, or Ruiz on the ankle, like that's an easy target, right? You say like,
Yep.
I'm gonna big spots. I'm putting my best guy across him and saying, go ahead, good luck. Try to block him, or play games where can he read it? Can they pass it off properly? Before I ask you about Kelvin Banks, I do have to tell you about our great sponsor, PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of football season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Now, you know how this works if you've been following the podcast. You pick 2 players up to 6 to win 1,000 times your cash, and it's more or less. So if you got a feeling coming into the Thursday night football game, like, hey, they're going to get Saquon Barkley going, I'm going to look at his numbers, touchdowns, rushing yards, rushing attempts, etc. You take more on that, but you can also combine it with other sports, basketball, soccer, baseball, as you have the playoffs going on. You have those capabilities to do it. So just download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off in lineups off your first 5. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off in lineups for your first 5. PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. And just quickly, just because I'm a man of the people, I have my PrizePicks for you. Saquon Barkley, more than a half a touchdown as they play here on Thursday night against the Giants. And then when I look to the Saints-Patriots game, Drake May, more than 1.5 touchdown passes. Drake May, more than 25.5 yards rushing. And Stefon Diggs, the number still seems a little bit low, more than 49.5 yards receiving.
I'm with you on all those. I live in the dumbest state in the world. We have drive-through daiquiri shops, but you can't play PrizePicks or like.
How does that make sense?
I have no idea. Go ahead and have that, open container in the car, but like, don't let us know that your research might make you think that Drake May could have more than 1.5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I looked at some of the Saints metrics and the ability to sort of pop some runs against them, and I was like, because initially I was like, he hasn't been running as much lately. I'm like, but I could see a 20-yard, play here, and then that just skews the numbers wonderfully. I wanted to ask you about Kelvin Banks, first-round pick, left tackle. One of those guys that he was coming out, much like, say, Will Campbell, much like, say, a couple of these other guys. Is he a guard? Is he a tackle? He's been the tackle like Will Campbell since day one. What have you seen? Has that been a pick that has, at least, again, through 5 weeks, proven to be the right pick?
Yeah, I think both of them are developing and coming together, him and Fuaga. Both of them have played pretty good. Obviously some ups and downs. He won the battle last week against New York, gave up one pressure in that game. There's about 4 other plays where I thought maybe he was a little bit shaky, but I mean, you're going to have that. The weird thing with them is kind of with how they formation and line up. Banks gets left on an island a rate higher than like Lane Johnson. It's like top 4 in the league. Fuaga's like top 6. Like they kind of are just kind of putting a lot on those two, and they're holding up for the most part. I think if they got some of the help that some of the other people get, they'd probably, both of them, I think, would be a lot more hyped than they are. Their PFF grades would be in a range where people notice people doing good things on bad teams, which is kind of the catalyst for getting that kind of hype. But I think both of them are playing really well, and as they probably got to rebuild damn near everything here. I think they actually do have two anchor points there that gives you an identity, something to build around. And neither one of them are perfect. Fuaga's had some injuries this year. He's already dealt with a knee injury, something that he's rehabbing and it takes maintenance. He's had a back injury. But I think both those guys are incredibly promising and definitely I think can be foundational pieces for this team.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about leaving them on an island. The Patriots have been very protective of Will Campbell, and it's not that Will has played poorly. No, he's played quite well. To me, he's been a bit of a surprise because I did have questions, and it hasn't been perfect.
Yep.
To your point, Nate Herbig took advantage of the short arms a couple of times and went inside and beat him. He falls off some blocks in the run game at times, but like in general, even in the Bills game, and Bedard and I went back and forth on this. Bedard was like, borderline thumbs down, and I was like, thumbs up. He held up against Joey Bosa, who's not an awesome player anymore, but still an accomplished and still a guy as a pass rusher that can get you. And in that environment on a Sunday night with 76,000 people screaming their bloody heads off in the whiteout, like it was good. It was solid. Like they've come so far from where they were at that position the last couple of years that I'm willing to live with some of the mistakes knowing that this is a good football player. And even if he ends up on the inside eventually, I don't know that he's going to be a good player. He's going to be one of your best five for a good long time. Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. Patriots can't run. Now, Antonio Gibson, who's been their best running back, is out for the year with a torn ACL. They're probably going to elevate, as again, we're taping this on Thursday morning, so it hasn't happened yet, but Terrell Jennings probably comes up from the practice squad, joins the backfield of Trevion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre continues to have the fumbling problems. Vrabel continues to stick by him. I look at the Saints team, much like I did with the Bills, and say, well, if you can't run against the Bills, who are you going to be able to run against? Well, now I'm like, if you can't run against the Saints, who are you going to be able to run against? Why are they struggling so much up front to deal with the run?
I mean, it's been awful. And it was supposed to be the thing that they fixed this offseason. Justin Reed is supposed to be, a great tackler. He's been solid, but like he's missed way more than I would have expected him to miss. And look, they traded for Godchaw, and it's not been good, man. Like, and I don't know if this is a game where he shows up with a point to prove, and he makes me look stupid for doubting it. But
by the way, this is a spot for him. He does love he would turn it on invariably over the last couple of years. Like, oh, big game, national TV. I'm going to show out, even if I hadn't been prior, and I won't after.
So that's him. I didn't know that. That makes sense because, like, man, in camp, like I'm looking at him and he's just engulfing people and making plays, and I was just like, this is gonna be a game changer for them. Like they got a player they really need, and just then you watch, and sometimes it's just kind of getting pushed around a little more. And it's like, what's going on here? It's been surprising. Look, their linebackers, DeMario can still make plays, but they're older. I don't think Pete Werner's kind of shown out the way they hoped when they signed him to that contract last year. I'm actually looking at him as like maybe somebody that ends up getting moved before the trade deadline. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, just overall, they haven't tackled well. And I don't think, they play the 3-4 base front. And I just don't think that you're getting that body eater in the middle that you thought you were getting with Godchaw.
Meanwhile, when it comes to pass rush, now the Patriots have been, again, you look at some of the metrics, you're like, oh, this offensive line's doing a really good job pass blocking. Decent, okay? Certainly, again, a huge step up from where they've been the last couple of years. What's interesting to me is when you kind of go through the game and I'm like, oh, pressure here. It's like, oh, it's no one who's getting completely destroyed every game. It's a couple off of this guy. It's one off of this guy. It's one off of that guy. And then Drake, as you especially saw in the second half of the Bills game, erasing anybody's mistakes. Like he was playing at such a high level that, you make a mistake, I'm still going to get outside the pocket. Guys draped on me, I'm still going to complete a pass. What have you seen from the Saints pass rush? How much gas in the tank does Cam Jordan have? I kind of like Granderson on the other side. I think he's a pretty good football player.
Granderson is, yeah. He gets a good amount of pressure. I think he'd be good as like a number 2 pass rusher for a lot of teams. Unfortunately, he's the Saints' number 1 right now. But he makes some plays. I think something that's really helped Cam this year, because it kind of was looking crazy last year. They changed schemes. In this scheme, it's really like the Vic Fangio type front, and they allow him to line up at the wide 9, and it gives him a little bit more room to operate. last year was kind of more like a 5 tech position, like right at the end, tight formations. And I just don't think he had a lot of room to operate. I think giving him a little bit of room to operate, set some stuff up, it has helped, and he's been more impactful. And I think he's still a viable player, where I think it was probably fair to maybe question it at a certain point of like, hey, look, like still doing this, but he's showing that this works for him. On the interior, they have Brian Brzee, former first round pick. I think he's playing his best football right now, probably coming off the best game of his career last week. Was really spotty against the run. He's been much better against the run. And then the other guy, I don't know if he's going to play this week or not, but Chase Young returned to practice. And he got a lot of pressure last year, not a lot of sacks. Probably been a little bit underwhelming here. Again, new scheme, maybe being able to line up a little bit wider gets him going. The other thing that I like about him, if he comes back this week, I think he's pissed off about the way people have been talking about him. So if you give him something to prove, maybe there's a little bit of pent up anger there that gets unleashed. They need it. Pass rush has been incredibly underwhelming. They got it going like late in the game against the Giants last week once they became one dimensional, but it hasn't been an impactful pass rush really at all.
How did they approach Josh Allen in the game? And not that Drake and Josh are a 1-for-1, but again, that sort of mobile, big arm quarterback who's not afraid to take off. Were there any different rush plans for that game to try to keep him corralled?
Yeah, I mean, they get into like some penny fronts in that, which kind of, gets widened. It's supposed to keep it condensed and not allow guys to get out and, limit some of them rush lanes. But, and they play a pattern match defense too. So you aren't really getting caught a lot with your back to the ball. Josh didn't become like a huge problem outside of the pocket. But yeah, I think it was just kind of relying on that scheme. And again, like it's Brandon Staley, like it's basically Vic Fangio, imprinted over here in all the stuff that you see Philly do is the stuff they're trying to do, but just with way lesser players. But yeah, I would expect something similar. They get out on him a little bit, but like it's a major change for the Saints because like Dennis Allen, it's a lot of man coverage back to the ball, and like these quarterbacks were just running all over them for years, and just like, hey man, like why does this keep happening? And you see it now, like a little bit more zone. You're looking at the quarterback. They've done a better job of keeping them in there, but I think absolutely like that there is slower front, so like you can create some opportunities there. And if something breaks, like I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Drake get out and have an explosive run or extend some of them plays. Like I think those opportunities will be there, and with their corners too, if you can extend, I think that there's absolutely opportunities to get shots down the field. Fully McKinstry put it together this week, had a good game, was the NFC Defensive Player of the Week, but Quincy Riley's a rookie, hasn't really been tested yet at that other corner spot. And Alontae Taylor's a little bit boomer bust. In its safety, I don't know if Reed's going to play or not. He has a concussion, but it's Jonas Sanker, a rookie. He's been really, really good. Yeah. The other guy, if it could be Jordan Howden out there. So I think there's definitely opportunities to try to take some shots down the field. If not, the way this defense plays is like it's all about limiting those explosive plays. But underneath it, outside of explosive plays, they've allowed a 98.6 passer rating on all passes 15 yards or less. Worst mark in the league. I think you just take the easy money, don't turn the ball over, and you can pick and pop your way down the field against these guys.
And that's been sort of the message, and they've tried to hammer it through, and it feels like it's landing with May about like just take the profit sometimes. Like not every play has to be a home run. We'll take a 5-yard gain. We'll take the 1-yard sack if you instead of being crazy and throwing into double coverage or trying to make a foolish play. It's interesting though, like just the development. Diggs has become the last 2 weeks a revelation. Like didn't expect him to be this good this fast. Still not, as it's like attached to his name. Still not yet a year removed from the ACL. 16 catches on his 19 targets in the last 2 weeks, over 100 yards in each game, almost 150 against the Bills. What you know of Staley, what you know of Moore, do they look at him and say, okay, yeah, maybe we are playing less man, but maybe on money downs, he gets more attention because that has clearly been a place that Drake has been very comfortable going to. Even before he went off, he was a sort of a big guy on third down for them.
Like I think Staley so believes in his scheme that it's just going to be what they do. So I would say that they stick with it. And Diggs is like a Saints killer. So the Minnesota Miracle, all that stuff. Like he's He's gonna hear some noise when he gets here. But yeah, no, I would expect him just to kind of approach it how they approach it. We haven't seen him really deviate from the scheme, and every time it comes up, it's like, hey, look, like you're giving up a lot of passing yards, and just his strong belief is like, yeah, well, we're cool with giving up the 8-yarder, but we aren't giving up any 40-yarders. And like you look at the explosives, yeah, they're extremely effective at limiting them, but it's like there's just so much easy passing yardage out there. Sometimes it's frustrating to watch because it's just like people are just marching, and it's just like you aren't doing anything to prevent this. And then you ask them about it, and it's like, well, yeah, but they didn't get a 40-yarder. Well, all right, but they got 8-8s. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's a little bit frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, the 12-play, 75-yard drive can be quite demoralizing, as can the
Yes.
long pass as well. But like that's, I mean, look, you were here in New England. You covered the Belichick times where it was the bend but don't break, and like the belief was not too many quarterbacks are going to complete 8 of 9 on a drive. Like you're going to eventually you're going to make a mistake, and we're smart enough to take advantage, or inside the red zone, we're going to bow up a little bit and make you kick field goals and not score touchdowns. But to your point, if you don't have the same level of talent, that becomes more difficult to do. One more ad read for you, Nick, and I know you got a dog, you got a wife, married, one kid, second kid, and then it was like, hey, if something happens to me, I want to make sure that my family is taken care of. And that's where life insurance is so valuable, to make sure the bills are paid. And again, knock on wood, I say I don't want anything to happen to me or anybody else that I care about. But you want to be prepared. And there's no better way to do this than by going to Ethos, which is the life insurance online that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not months. No complicated process, 100% online. And who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love not dealing with human beings from time to time? No medical exam required. You just answer a few health questions. You get a quote in as little as 10 minutes, and you can get same-day coverage without ever leaving your house. Life insurance, by the way, more affordable than you think. With Ethos, you can get a free quote and customize a rate that fits your budget. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, or some policies as low as $2 a day. You pick and choose what you want, and it's a trustworthy company. 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot. Over 3 million families have trusted their life insurance needs to Ethos. So protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get the free quote at ethos.com/all32. Again, that's Ethos, ethos.com/all32. All right, Nick, you got a 1-4 football team that, as you mentioned at the beginning, was sort of forced into a reset that they necessarily weren't looking towards. I've already had people in my mentions. I've already had Boston Sports Journal members talking about running backs, talking about potential additions. Mickey Loomis, will he be a seller, do you think, if things continue to trend in the direction that I think you've expected to trend?
Yeah, I do. I think they will. I think they definitely will. And I think pretty much anybody would be available at this point. I don't think there'd be any sacred cows. I don't think they'd trade away everybody, but I think they're willing to trade away somebodies. Throw me in there. Is there someone you're curious
I would
about?
start with Alvin Kamara, who I've seen you on Twitter. I watched the pod. You do not believe he wants to be traded. Is that someone that, if there is a fair offer for him, that Mickey Loomis says, I'm sorry, but I can't turn down a 4th-round pick?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think they would be willing to trade him. I'm not convinced that Alvin would be willing to go play football somewhere else. I say that, and I could see him potentially getting sold on the idea of like going to play for Sean Payton again, or maybe Dan Campbell. But I would be incredibly surprised if it's like, hey, go to Buffalo, and he'd be like, yeah, sure. No, like he's got enough interest, and maybe the most interesting person that I've ever been around in any walk of life, just the eclecticness and how he moves and the things that interest him and the things he cares about. I would be incredibly surprised. Now, I'm not saying like it's impossible, but I would be incredibly surprised if there are many options open there to where he'd be like, yeah, I'll go play there. And if you're actually willing to follow through on that, like you actually have leverage. And I think anybody that knows Alvin, if he said, hey, look, I'm not doing that, you kind of know it's like he's not going to do it kicking and screaming. He's just not going to do it.
Yeah, and I mentioned a 4th, but history tells us older running backs, it's a 6th or a 7th. And then is that really is that really worth it, for the team to say, hey, this is a franchise cornerstone and still a good football player that, yeah, we may be a different point in our build, but like there's value to having him here, even if he was willing to be like, okay, I guess I'd do that. What's the return? Is it enough,
Yep. Other guys that I think could be available, I mean, like Chris Olave, I think they'd be willing to move him for the right price. Rashid Shaheed's in the last year of his deal, so I don't know what you'd be able to get back for him. But if it's made clear to you that he's going to explore his options, I think that the door will be open there. Alontae Taylor, the slot corner, he's in the last year of his contract. And I think Granderson might have the most trade value on the team. I don't know if they'd make him available. That'd be a little bit iffy, but I think Pete Werner is someone that they'd be willing to trade too. I think there's some guys here that you might see some people move if they get the right offers. I don't know that, it would be a fire sale or they'd be aggressively looking to offload people just because of the way they think. It's, again, back to the reluctant rebuild. Like, the general manager never feels like he's too far off in the NFC South. And if they actually think the quarterback is real and he can copy this, and you get to 10 games in and he has 12 touchdowns and 2 picks and it's 2,000 yards or whatever, they might sell themselves on the idea of like, well, hey, Jordan Tyson, Ruben Bain, Chris Bell, like you go get a couple guys, add to it, get a pass rusher, a couple weapons, and maybe you're back in it. So yeah, I don't think that they're going to aggressively try to move people, but I think for the right offers, I think they're realistic about where they exist right now, which is more than I've ever seen from them. They should have started rebuilding probably 3 years ago, and this is the first time ever that there's like actually signs that they're going through it.
I want to circle back to Olave because he's another name that comes up. Everybody likes the shiny toys. Obviously, someone with a lengthy concussion history, but the numbers say this year producing at a pretty high level. Obviously, targeted early and often by Spencer Rattler. What have you seen from his game this year, and where do you think his overall health is?
Yeah, he's definitely healthy. He's stronger. I think he's the best player on the team. I just don't know that he blends in with this team, and I think there's so much more that he could give to a team. They don't do a lot with him deep. He's a great deep route runner. He's incredibly fast. His route running, I think, if you really study it, I don't think there's a lot of guys that you could say run better routes than him. I mean, he's incredibly precise. His numbers should be a little bit better this year, but there's just this like weird slight inaccuracy. A couple passes that have come behind him. He's not like necessarily a Justin Jefferson that's gonna erase every mistake that your quarterback makes, but like I think he's a guy that you could easily put on a different offense with a different team. Look, I think if you got 17 games with Derek Carr and they're both healthy, like you're looking at 1,400 yards in this offense. Like, it was right there. It was on that pace. They don't push the ball a lot. They've kind of treated him a little bit like a Deebo Samuel in this offense, like just kind of wide screens and stuff like that. And it's just, that's not necessarily his game. I think it's opened up a little bit more recently, but I think absolutely in the right situation, like he could easily be a top 15 wide receiver.
I'm glad you brought up the route running with him, because I remember talking to scouts when he was coming out, and they're being like, he's the best route runner in this draft, absolutely loving him. And now when you have a technician like Stefon Diggs, the idea of, again, if they were to go this direction, and they've shown an interest in wide receivers, they tried to trade for DK. He said, I don't want to come there. Brandon Ayuk said the same thing. They obviously were very interested in Chris Godwin in free agency, and he decided not to leave Tampa Bay, which I don't blame him. But like, that's been something that they've shown a willingness, unlike this era of this management team. The other guy, Bill Belichick, I'm not spending big money on that position. The further away you get from the football, the less chance you're going to get paid for me. These guys have shown a willingness to pay someone $25-30 million at the position, which I think if Olave makes it through the year healthy and wherever to hit the market, that's the kind of player we're talking about, right?
Yeah, no, he's definitely that type of guy. Look, I think it's a situation where Chris should want to go and the Saints should want to get rid of him. Like, I think Chris should want to get to a place where he can put up the Garrett Wilson type numbers and make the money. And I think he should want out of here sooner than later so that he can start making that case. Because this is an offense most weeks, I think, as long as Rattler is a quarterback, I think you're looking at a team that's probably pass him for 175, 200 yards every week. And like the opportunities just aren't going to be there to do that. So he should want out to prove it, to make his money, to restore that value. Because I think it's dissipated over the last couple of years, to be honest. Like I think 2 years ago, before all the concussions started happening, and then this a little bit more limited of an offense has definitely hurt him. And for the Saints, they should just want to reset their clock. If you can get a second round pick for Chris and draft someone else, and you kind of get him on that same timeline, it just gives you a little bit more time. Because if he's not the Justin Jefferson, and it's not necessarily elevating your quarterback from being game manager to maybe, a little bit higher on that list, what's the point of paying him $25-30 million? If it's not going to make that huge difference. So I think you'd rather get two guys that are kind of in the same walk of life. If you can get that draft pick, pair them up with your quarterback, and start building from there.
I commiserate with you, Nick, because we lived this, and look, we were very fortunate for almost 2 decades, but we've lived this the last few years where you're just in October and you're already knee deep in college prospects and what position should they really be looking at. And if you ended up picking second, would you take a Godfather offer to move? Like all the different things that you're talking about timelines, and like it's
the worst part about covering a bad team, or like a unsettled team, is the lengths that people will go to argue about bad quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like over the last 5 years, man, I've just been watching people battle, and it's like, you're really going to go online and just dedicate your life to arguing between a Honda Civic and an Accord. Like, what is the point? Like, if you don't have one, if you're driving in an economy car, you got an economy car. Like, I can't imagine dedicating my life to just arguing over something mid. And it's just like, I didn't realize that covering Brady. I didn't realize that covering Breeze. And then once they went, I just realized that, like, man, there's people that'll just fight all day long for Trevor Siemian. Like, why? Why is this happening? It's a tough place to live.
I mean, you love the passion, right? But like, I'm in the same place. After the first 4-13, they got Belichick fired. They proceeded to like re-sign all the core players from that group. I'm like, some of these guys were complicit in this thing going in the wrong direction and giving them real money. And you're like, why would you give Kyle Duggar 14? Like, I like Kyle, but he's not that kind of player,
Yeah.
And when like you had to pay him because you had no offensive line, but Kendrick Bourne, like they did Ramondre, even with the extension, like paying him top 10 running back money. It's like, you guys were 4-13 last year. Like, what are you doing? And then lo and behold, they're 4-13 again. And you're like, boy, that contract kind of sucks. And now you're in a place where Ramondre's fumbling all the time. Duggar's barely getting on the field. Bourne's been, like all those guys that got extensions, Gottschall, they trade him. They literally just moved on from all these dudes. And you're like, I could have seen, I was telling you this a real chance of happening, but it's frustrating. Just lastly for me, what's the sense? And the the Saints have the later afternoon practices, so you're just sort of like just in the beginning of your week with them. What is the sense you get about how they think about the Patriots, what they've seen on tape, and if there's any places that they look at and say, oh, like that's a place where we can attack?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously talking up Drake May a lot, and man, that last game was insane. Like that was eye opening. Like I'm watching that, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it actually looks like. This is what real hope looks like. I think that's definitely something. I think honestly, I think they're kind of looking at the coverage and how they do things and think that they're going to be able to take some shots down the field. That's kind of one of the things that I'm sensing from them. I think they feel like they're going to have more opportunities there. And they've started to do kind of a better job of pushing a couple things. So some more play action under center looks was something they weren't doing. They started mixing that in. Like, so they're kind of figuring out how they can manufacture some of these shots. And I think that they see potentially the opportunity to try to get down the field against them.
You had a great illustration on NewOrleans.football of the Rashid Shaheed touchdown, right? Where heavy personnel, he's the lone receiver, and not something they had shown. And then bingo, you get one of the fastest guys in the league running past people, and all of a sudden you have that explosive that you, as you said, you've been desperate for.
Yeah, they need those. Like that's the only way they have a shot to win this game. Like they got 5 turnovers last week and then they scored 1 touchdown, and it was that 87-yard shot. So there's a lot of problems. It's bend but don't break. that was the first time they got some turnovers, and it was like literally like Jackson Dart handing the ball over, and a couple late picks that didn't really mean anything. So I think it's going to be a really tough game for the Saints. I would not make any prize picks regarding them. I would put them all on the other team. They got a lot to prove right now, but yeah, I just don't look. I mean, I don't see him being able to win 2 games in a row. Not yet, not right now. The only way that it would happen is if like Chase Young shows up and all of a sudden he looks like the guy that was the number 2 pick in the 2020 draft, and that hasn't happened yet. I don't think they're ready to like truly compete against a team that looks like it's kind of ready to compete.
Nick, I really appreciate you joining me today. Like I said, an absolutely phenomenal story. I know the newsmakers or the people that report on the news in New Orleans should have written a glowing feature about NewOrleans.football because of what you've built there. Of course, they're not going to, because you're kicking their ass and their sports teams, their sports coverage, like all over the place. It's kind of embarrassing, but literally to build it out the way you did, much respect for you. It's an awesome site, people. If you want to know more about the league, if you want to know more about X's and O's, because Nick gets into all that stuff, then $9 a month, right? I believe
$9 a month. Yep.
I mean, that's chump change, right? That's a coffee at Starbucks these days. Like, do it. You'll feel better about yourself. You'll learn more. And who knows, maybe Chris Olave saddles up, or Alvin Kamara, who I know Nick's close with, saddles up. So, Nick, tell him I want to go. Tell him I'm ready to leave now. You get that scoop from Nick Underhill on New Orleans football with his great staff as well. Nick, thank you much. Unfortunately, I will not be seeing you in New Orleans. I'm not making the road trip this week. I'm still recovering, actually, from getting my ass kicked in Buffalo. I'm an old man. Night games kill me. Not only that, but people partying in the hotel till 4:30 in the morning when your boy's trying to sleep. It's completely, just absolutely taking me off my feet. Playing catch up all week long, but you've helped a great deal when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. We will talk to you soon, and hopefully we will see you soon. Just, again, not this week. Appreciate you, bud.
Appreciate you.